Welcome, everyone. Is this our first? No, our second of the fall. This is knitting season. So I always love it because great books come out. They're like people are in the mood. You go into the yarn store and you feel all those squishy wools and, you know, alpacas. And it just, as soon as the weather starts to turn a little bit, and here I'm up in the mountains right now, and the maple trees are just starting to turn, and it just so puts you in the mood to knit. So, and I was really excited to get the advanced copy of this book because I have gone from being the kind of knitter who knits things just because it looks like a cool project, but I would never wear it, to someone who would never knit anything that I didn't actually intend to wear, or for somebody I love who's lucky enough to have me knit them something for them to wear. So I was really excited to get this book, and it was so beautiful. And so I'm really tickled, Andrea, that you could make your first appearance on the party line to celebrate this really gorgeous book. So welcome, welcome, welcome to the Planet Pearl party line.
Thanks so much for hosting me. I'm really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, this was I see a lot of books that have like, crazy complicated lace and, projects where I look at them and I think, oh my God, A, it would take me a year to knit this. And B, I have dogs, I wear jewelry. I
Hmm.
would have to take all my jewelry off, not wear a watch, and only put it on when I got outside of the house so that my dogs didn't touch it. And then I would be careful all evening to make sure nobody got too close to me because I'd be so afraid that, something would catch on it, somebody's bracelet would catch on it or something. And I see a lot of books like that. And I think we were just talking before we started recording. I think all of us have knit one of those projects before, but it sits in a drawer or it's in the back of a closet where it's safe, or it's in a sweater bag and you take it out every once in a while and admire it and think about how great your knitting mojo is. But you know, there's there's something to be said for useful objects being used, and just loved the whole idea of this book and really beautiful designs that you're meant to actually wear, which is
Thanks so much.
a really cool thing. So tell us how the idea for this book came about.
Well, it was pretty long in the works. I do really wear what I knit. I'm generally that person who's got like 6 layers of wool on, and I just delight in sweater season. As soon as it starts to get the slightest bit chilly, I get really happy. And so I really wear a lot of what I knit, and I'm also pretty into outdoorsy activity type things. I ride my bike for transportation. I live in Victoria, BC, so I'm sort of in the Pacific Northwest where it's a little drizzly a lot of the year and it doesn't get too chilly, but it's definitely, we have winters. So I bike all year round. So I bike in wool, not really in synthetics, except for if it's pouring rain, I will put a rain jacket on. But I wear my wool for cycling and for camping and hiking, and I love being outside. So I had a thought that I would design some sort of sportswear, activewear type knitting. But I was approached by Carrie Bogert at Interweave with the thought of proposing a book, and she had the idea of the word rugged. She brought that to me. She was thinking some chunky knits, but it really, that word rugged really like spoke to me in a different way. It really just was like, oh, that's my thing. So so it just made me think of like not necessarily sportswear as I had originally thought of, but more things that are just what you would wear to do all of your activities, the things that people just do every day, and things that you would actually, if you're going on a walk with the dog, you are, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have like a great farm and you're doing your farm chores, going for a hike or cycling like I do, and things that would really last a long time. And when I was thinking about last a long time, I thought about construction, I thought about materials, but I also thought about style. So I think that the patterns in this book are, I think they're unique and original and interesting, but they aren't so out there that it's something that in 5 years you're going to be thinking like, this is not trendy anymore.
Yeah, I mean
Uh,
they're classic, but they're modern classic, and I think not just kind of the actual design, but the colors and the patterns in them. I mean, just make them really just fresh and beautiful without being trendy. Like this sweater on the cover is not something that you're not going to be able to wear in 10 years.
Right. I feel like a lot of the pieces, what I was going for was the idea that they would transcend like, oh, this is only for someone of this age group, or you would only wear this when you're, like 25, and then when you're 50, you're not going to want it anymore. Like it's not going to be your style anymore. And I feel like I mean, there are a lot of options in the book. Quite a few patterns, but there are also, I think, the sweaters are things that you could continue to wear and that are subtle enough that I think they could continue to fit into your wardrobe, but sort of have these details and everything that as a knitter you get kind of excited and proud of them because they do showcase some really great techniques and fun things that you can show off to your knitter friends, but also your non-knitter friends won't really be like, oh, you made that sweater, or wow, you made that sweater, rather than, they might even think you bought it.
Yeah,
So,
there's a good idea. And then maybe they won't ask you to knit them one too. So,
yeah.
yeah, because you could just whip that up in a week. What the heck? So,
Like we do.
yeah, that's how we do it. It's easy. It's just easy. But yeah,
Mhm.
and it's funny when you were talking about, how people of different ages would wear it, because I've got a good 30 plus years on you, and there isn't a design in this book I wouldn't wear. So,
Oh, that's wonderful to
yeah, I
hear.
mean, that's when you said that, I thought, I can see my 30-year-old daughter-in-law wearing them, but there's nothing in this book I wouldn't wear myself as well. Yeah, and Kate makes a good point. She says when she spends a lot on yarn, she wants that sweater to be classic and last for years. Exactly, because we don't knit sweaters because it's cheaper than buying them.
That's right. We knit
With
them because they are, I mean, for a lot of reasons, but partly they're better. Like they're better quality,
they
right?
are, because you can go to Target and buy a cardigan for $10. So, and it was interesting when I spent some time traveling, and if you go into countries whose economies are not great, you can't find yarn stores because
Mhm.
really hand knitting, especially with quality yarn, is really a luxury item as opposed to the mass produced really cheap
Yeah,
acrylic
that's
type
true.
sweaters and things. So yeah, you
When I
definitely
lived
go
Yeah,
ahead.
when I lived in Jordan, we lived in a little village. My husband and I were Peace Corps volunteers, but we would go into the city and there was one yarn shop and it was almost all acrylic. And there was like, it was mostly a button shop and there was a bunch of ribbon, but there was all this acrylic. And then there was this like skeins of just really straight up plain wool, like worsted weight wool that was from Turkey. And it was basically like patents, kind of like wool. And I mean, it was fine, but that was the only wool that I could get there. And it was pretty expensive, especially on a Peace Corps
Yeah,
volunteers
volunteer
income.
budget.
But,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, that was the only place that it was available. So yeah, I think you're right that it's more available in places like Canada and the States. And, we got to support those local yarn shops to keep them going.
Absolutely. It breaks my heart whenever somebody emails me something that says, "Oh, this shop is on your yarn shop directory. They closed." And unfortunately, I get those emails pretty regularly, and it's always sad when that happens. So we definitely
Yeah.
need to support our local yarn stores, and because life without a yarn store, I don't
Yeah.
know.
I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
about
not
that.
good. So let's take everyone on a private tour of the book, and And I think I pulled the cover out later, so I think we can talk about that one when we get there. So
Okay.
I love that there are kind of, and this is a men's base layer, and it's actually designed for a man's body because
Yeah,
there
the
is actually a
proportions.
difference between how men and women are built. There's a surprise.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's definitely a place for more unisex styles, but in general, men proportionally have longer arms in relation to their torso circumference, and they need a deeper armhole depth. So those are obvious things that are fine. You can adjust lengths, but it's also really nice when you're going for a piece that's a little bit more fitted to have the correct shaping for the waist. So men generally, and obviously this is totally an average thing, people are all different, but in comparison to women tend to have narrow hips and wide chest. And so, but without that whole waist thing that sometimes ladies have. So we tend to have bigger hips, and then the bust is more similar to our hip circumference, and then maybe a waist in the middle, depending on how you're shaped. But so when you are working on men's designs, it's nice to have that nipped hips and then a little bit wider at the chest area. So yes, this one is actually completely different than the women's version in the shaping and the lengths and all of that in order to better fit a man's proportions because it is intended to be worn a little bit more snugly than is common.
yeah. So it's going to fit better if you're putting something over it, a jacket or
Mhm.
a sports jacket, if you put something over it. And so this is actually designed to fit a man's body. And I just love this simple texture that just gives it interest and but this is a kind of sweater you could have worn 20 years ago, and I'm sure you can wear 20 years from now. It's just such a classic.
Yeah, that's what I was going for. And that texture is pretty simple to learn and memorize, but it's pretty fun to work and it adds just a little bit of interest. So, I mean, the gauge is quite tiny on this one because it's meant to be a really lightweight fabric, something that you'll really enjoy for a long time. So, and also sometimes I've heard that men like light fabrics better. Sometimes they don't want anything that's too warm. So, this
Yeah.
that one
Well,
really fits the
if the
bill.
men in my house are any are normal in terms of their taste, yes, the lighter weight sweater, especially I think a lot of guys, they're putting it on over a shirt, and a really thick sweater can feel really confining. It's really not, I mean, for women, I think those chunky sweaters are more of a fashion statement as opposed to a really like regular heavy use, like wear it every day kind of piece. And the lighter weight sweaters seem to be more, get a lot more use. So this is really
Yeah,
pretty. Yeah, and Kate says she likes this. It's too bad her husband won't wear what she makes, so it's more time to make for her, which there's the
yeah,
bright side, right?
you gotta look
So
on the bright
you got to
side.
look on the bright side, and so here you go, Kate. So here's the shape that's actually made to fit a woman's
So this
body.
one has that waist shaping and it has shorter sleeves relative and shorter armhole depth relative to the bust circumference. So it's definitely shaped a bit differently.
And this is top down, right?
No, both of these are bottom up.
Oh,
So,
good.
but they are worked in the round.
Yeah,
I'm sort of a bottom up person. I
I do
rarely work
too.
top down. I think that's just a little preference. I don't know.
No, I'm the same
But
way.
I
I
like
like
it.
to start at the bottom, and actually, and seams don't bother me. I mean, that's the seaming and
Not at
doing it
all.
in a sweater in four pieces doesn't bother me at all.
I
But
use themes for function and for style. So I really think that they are very, very helpful in a lot of cases. And a lot of the pieces in here are seamed. This one isn't because I wanted it to be as sleek as possible.
yeah,
So it's just a really nice, like round in the round, no seams, just really smooth and easy to work.
yeah. And
But
with the lighter weight yarns, I mean, with the heavier sweaters, you almost need the seams to stabilize the
yeah,
weight of the sweater,
absolutely.
but something that's light like this. And we had a little brief chat yesterday, and I was talking about this color, and it's so funny because Kate just says she loves this color, and so does Mary. And I had a birthday trip this summer, and I went to Paris, my very favorite city. I hadn't been like in 10 years, and this color is just everywhere. And there's something about this color. It's just hard not to feel happy when you look at it.
Oh, I love this color. This is Anzula Cloud is the name of this yarn, and the color is avocado. And I pretty sure the first time I saw this, I was at TNNA a few years ago, which is the National Needle Arts Association trade show that I attend every summer. And the Anzula folks had, they have a wonderful booth every year, and this color just screamed out at me from I don't even know across the room, and so I took some just knowing I had to do something with it, and I really love having it in a sweater, and I think it's really bold, and I know it's not necessarily the thing that everybody wants next to their face, but man, I just adore this color and absolutely love this yarn. So that's Anzula Cloud is a really good choice for this piece. It's very light and fluffy, and it's kind of loosely spun two-ply, and it's that merino cashmere
Oh,
blend, which is so
see, now
divine
I kind
next
of
to
like
your
want to
skin.
touch that. I want to touch that sweater.
Yeah, it's
So,
amazing.
yeah, and a great like underlayer,
Mhm,
if you're in a colder climate. This is
mhm,
in Florida, which is where I am most of the year. This is actually like a winter coat. But
mhm.
for most people, this is their underlayer, and it's just the fit is so nice. You're not going to feel, there's just something when like penguin like of wearing really bulky sweaters. You just like
Well,
the
I just
Michelin tire
love
man.
I tend to wear merino base layers when I'm camping or hiking or things like that. And so the idea of knitting one for myself is just super special, just to have that kind of base layer that is even more luxurious than the regular merino ones and that you made yourself and that is just like so that's got that special texture. It's kind of that thermal feel.
Yeah, and way
Yeah, it's
cuter than like thermal underwear.
exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
way cuter than thermal underwear. And speaking of over layers,
hmm
I mean, this looks like that piece you're going to throw on to go outside and rake leaves, or I mean, you're just never going to be afraid that something bad's going to happen to it. It has that just comfortable look to it.
hmm
Tell us about this design.
This design, I just love how big those stitches are. And I used a yarn, Imperial yarn, bulky two strand, which is actually not spun. It's two strands of unspun roving held together. So while you're knitting it, it's kind of delicate, but once it's knit up, it makes this fabric that weighs almost nothing.
Oh my
But the
God.
stitches are, I mean, they're enormous. It's huge stitches. It weighs nothing. It feels so comfortable and squishy. So it's just like this great woolly layer that is actually not that heavy despite the really big stitches, and it's probably the fastest garment possible because it's just like these giant stitches, and the vest is, it's not that much fabric. So it goes really, really quickly. And then I wanted to add a little bit of that color blocking just to have a little interest and just add a little something. And short row shaping makes those sleeve caps and a little bit of a shape on the neckline as well.
Yeah, it's that, and the fact that you said that it's like light as air,
Mm-hmm.
just yeah. Now I want to squish that sweater, but I'm gonna
Yeah,
have to look for
everything
that yarn
is
because
a squishy.
that really sounds amazing. And I know the the two ply roving. I know you have to just pay a little more attention so you don't split the yarn while you're
Right.
knitting, but
Mm-hmm.
to get that
It's
kind of
worth it. Yeah.
lightness, yeah, it's really
Yeah.
pretty.
Substituting yarns definitely for that one, you'd want something that is not very dense, but is really light so that you get, because that one doesn't have seams either. So you'd want it to be nice and light so that it would
Keep
maintain
it
that
shape.
shape.
Yeah. And this, I mean, this is such a classic look, but you know what? When I looked at it, I thought, but there's something different here. And I was trying to figure out whether it was the shaping or like where the color blocking starts, but it it's like classic, but it's different, and I couldn't figure out. So tell me where it is, because it was driving me nuts.
So
Yeah,
this is obviously
Kate.
strongly inspired by a Lopa Pesa, which is the Icelandic style of sweaters. And the yarn that I used for this actually is the Istex Let Lopi, which is their Aran weight yarn. And I really wanted something that had that, yes, I am, inspired by Icelandic sweaters look, but also had something special. So that yoke pattern was something that my husband is actually trained as a fine artist, and he helps me with color patterns quite frequently. And he came up with several different charts, a lot of different charts that I swatched and we tried all these different ways. This is the one that I probably redid the most in the book, just because I was trying to get it exactly perfect. And so we have an original stitch pattern. I didn't find that in any book. He came up with that for me. And then one thing I love about this is how it transitions. So you have that sort of sand color with the black, and then it transitions into white with the black. And it's pretty subtle, but I think it makes a really cool look that's kind of gradient. And then you end up with that really strong black collar. And I think those really strong sort of black charcoal elements are probably part of what you're seeing that's a little bit different, is the button bands, the really strong collar, those cuffs. All of those I have not seen that. I can't think of a place that I've seen that strong contrast for those elements. And then those giant pockets, which the pockets are like huge and functional, and you can put your keys in there and you can put your hands in there. They are not decorative. They are definitely for using.
They would
So
even
I
hold an
think that's
iPhone
relevant.
6 or 6S, right?
I
Like
think
the
they
6
would.
Plus,
I
right?
haven't specifically tested that model, but I think they would.
Yeah, I was just checking I think it would. I think it would, because I have the big phone, and I think it would actually fit in that pocket. So
Mhm.
yeah, and this Mary says this is beautiful. It has that Scandinavian look, and Kate loves it. It's classic. And Kate M was saying that she loves that two color versus, because it's really neutral and strong, but it doesn't
Mhm.
have that kind of gradient feel to it that a lot of the Norwegian or Scandinavian inspired sweaters are. Savannah Gal, oh, welcome, Savannah Gal. I haven't seen you for a little while. Says this is gorgeous. Oh, she keeps getting interrupted by work. Sorry, honey. I hate when work interferes with my knitting. But I think
True.
when I look at the pattern on this, I see, that there's that eyelet lace that you weave a ribbon in and out of, and I kind of see
Mm.
that in the white part, and
Yeah, I
then
can see
just
that.
really delicate, almost Victorian lace design across that bottom. There's just something about it that is really, really, really beautiful.
I love that reading of it because I think an idea that I come back to again and again, sort of in my life and in my work, is the idea of really delicate beauty, but also like rough and rustic, that's like hardcore and can last the test of time. So I feel like that's a really cool way of looking at it, that juxtaposition between beautiful, delicate, elegant, feminine, and hardy and tough.
Yeah,
So
it's a really, really special sweater. It's just gorgeous. And
thank
then
you.
there are a couple of shawls in here, which, for anybody who spends any time, either the fall, the winter, or the spring, in a place where it actually gets cold in the evenings or chilly in the evenings, which is really most of the country, those little wedding ring lace cobweb shawls really do not provide any kind
A
of
lot of
warmth whatsoever.
warmth.
But it's, and I was looking to knit myself a nice warm shawl, and I was really shocked at how few patterns there are that use something other than lace weight yarn, that actually you put it on and it would help protect you from the chill. So I was really tickled to see couple of beautiful shawls. We'll look at the next one on the next slide, um, but this is so pretty. I love how it kind of comes together with those bias stripes, and it really adds a lot of interest to it. So tell us about this design.
Well, this one is, I knitted up in a silk blend. So it's
Mm.
Quince and Co. Tern, which is a wool silk blend. And so I think that adds a little bit to that shine and the popping of the stitches that you're seeing there. It's a really gorgeous yarn, but I used a slip stitch pattern. So it's very dense and uses a lot of yarn. It's a pretty intense project, but I think the result is totally worth it. You get a really beautiful flowing fabric that's also really dense. And this one is shaped, it's a triangle shape, and it's got a pretty long wingspan, so it's pretty generous. That lace edging is worked at the same time. And then the top edge is finished with an I-cord, applied I-cord after you're all finished. So it has some really nice little details. It's one that isn't going to be a super quick knit, but even though it's fingering weight yarn, it actually has quite a lot of heft to that fabric, and it just has those beautiful lines that are so elegant. And I think this is one that, even though you have that lace edging, which is so sweet and delicate, it's also a really, hardy, rugged kind of shawl that you can. I generally wear my shawls sort of scarf style, where I just wrap it around a bunch of times with the point in front. And I think this would be something that I will wear in lots of winters, and it can go with all sorts of things. And it just has that really subtle geometric thing going on that I think will add a lot to any outfit. So
Yeah, and it's got just a beautiful drape. The fabric just has a really, really lovely drape. It doesn't have, because I think the real challenge is if you're knitting in a larger, especially if you're knitting in a denser fabric, to get that, you know,
yeah,
kind of flow.
that drape. I do recommend something that has some drape to it if you're working on this project. So having a project that, or a yarn that has a little silk in it, can be really helpful, and you get that gorgeous little subtle shine as well when you're working with a silk blend. So
Yeah, and nice in your hands, which is important if you're working a larger project, especially.
absolutely,
Or
yeah,
life is too short to work with scratchy yarn. So,
totally.
yeah, exactly. And I loved this. Well, first of all, like, everybody needs a project that has a lot of stockinette in it because it's the restful part of knitting.
Yes.
But I love how deep the lace is on this, that it's not just a little bit of lace on the edge.
Mhm.
It's such a large part of the design, and that it's done in that heavier weight yarn. This is this is so pretty. Actually I might have to make this. Tell
It's
us about
it's
this
pretty quick.
project.
So
I love
yeah,
quick.
I worked on the proportions of this one. I that really deep lace edging was very much on purpose. I wanted the proportions to be so sort of weighted toward the bottom, so that you have this like very accented lace edging, and then just the nice peaceful center of the shawl. And this one is also a triangle. That lace pattern is one of the sort of old shale, a very, very old, very
Yeah.
traditional lace pattern that you've seen in probably a bunch of different things. But the difference here is that it's worked at this enormous scale. And there's something about working with these giant stitches that really appeals to me. I find it really fun. And it's just sort of a surprising, again, it's that juxtaposition of delicate with rugged that goes together. So this is worked as a triangle. You start it at the bottom and go up, and the lace is worked all at once, and then you start decreasing at the edges and in the center in order to get that sort of triangle crescent shape. And you have that really lovely stockinette body. I used another imperial yarn for this one, Native Twist, which comes in a lot of really gorgeous colors and is another super bulky that it's really soft and beautiful. And imperial yarns are really wonderful. They're made in the States, and they have this amazing ranch in Montana, and the folks who run it are really amazing people. So I recommend that yarn.
Yeah, this is, I mean, it's just It's so pretty, and yeah, Savannah Gal says it's feminine, and to get something to look really feminine that's done in a heavier and a bigger gauge like that, in a yeah, is I mean that's really a trick, and I just I think this is just so beautiful, and I've seen this lace pattern, but I've never seen it blown up like that,
Right.
you
Yeah, these
know.
chunky lace shawls are a thing. I mean, I like to do everything in my knitting, but one of my themes is definitely these big chunky lace shawls. And when I was working on this book, I knew I had to have a pattern in there that was one of these kinds of shawls because I have another shawl, Sentiment, that's like I worked it in Malabrigo Rasta. That's you know, bright orange and gorgeous, and Pembroke, and these are sort of these blown up lace patterns that just it really appeals to me, and I think it's just a really fun, quick, cool way to get your lace fix in. So I knew I needed to include one since it was something that really speaks to me. So
Yeah, and I think it's just such a modern take on lace for it not to be like doily lace, but
yeah,
to be like this really like in your face kind of lace. And I'm actually thinking, oh, this would be really good in a dark red. It's
oh
just
yeah.
like like something that's really yeah. My
This yarn
daughter.
comes in a gorgeous dark red. Yeah,
Yeah, and my daughter-in-law loves orange, and I can totally see this in an orange as well. So,
that would be
yeah,
fantastic.
Kate wants to know, do you get to keep the samples from the book?
I do. Yeah, they were returned to me right before publication. So I knit all of the samples myself,
Oh
and
gosh.
that was quite an undertaking. And I sent them all to Interweave to be photographed, which they just did such a beautiful job. I was so pleased. It's really stressful sending work off to be, I mean, I'm an independent person, and I have my own business, and generally I'm in control of these things. So sending them all off to a publisher to be photographed was a little stressful, but they did such a beautiful job. And then they
Yeah, they
sent
did
them back to me.
the styling in this book is really lovely. So
Yeah,
I know that's if when you're not in control of that, to cross your fingers and hope that the vision is what you think it's going to
right.
be, right?
Well, I got to write a memo that was very specific about what I wanted and what I didn't want. And from the photo shoot, it's really clear that they read my memo. So I really appreciate that they followed what I wanted. So
It's
yeah,
interesting
I'll let,
because a lot of interweave authors have said exactly the same thing that the interweave, they were very careful about how do you see this and then trying to make that, come to life. And I think, they get big props for
yeah,
treating
the
their
styling
author's
team
vision,
really listened,
with that kind
absolutely.
of respect, because I don't think that's necessarily a universal thing.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this is gorgeous. I got to go order the yarn for this. So, because I want one of these for myself. So, yeah, and Kate says this is a beautiful collection, which I agree.
Thank you, Kate.
And then, you know what I love is they photograph this as if she just took her wellies off, and
Hmm.
just to walk around knowing that you had these on underneath your rain boots would make me just grin all day, because
Hmm.
it's the color is just beautiful, and I love longer socks. I can't wear the short ones. They make me crazy. But these are really cute. Tell us about this.
Well, I do have some taller boots, and so the standard length of socks in the hand knitting world are just like a tiny bit too short. So I'm a big fan of taller socks. I like knee socks. I like over the knee socks even. But I wanted these to be sort of simple staple socks that you really would wear all the time, but that would brighten up your day and that would be fun to knit. And it's difficult to bull motifs on the outside of both of those socks. So there's this really sweet, kind of delicate cable motif that goes on the outside of the socks that adds a little bit of excitement and interest. And they have that broken rib stitch pattern all over, so they're sort of more elastic than socks might usually be. So trying to add to that long-lasting thing that we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and actually in the broken rib pattern is so easy to memorize that
Hmm.
it's very you get the relaxation effect of that repetitive stitch without
Right.
having to think really too hard.
Hmm.
And yeah,
And these do have calf shaping too, so they're nice and
they fit.
shaped, so they'll be comfortable and stay up. And that yarn is Hazelnut's Artisan Sock, which is just a really fantastic sock yarn. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, they're beautiful. And actually, Mary Alice says she loves knee socks, and there aren't a lot of patterns for knee socks, which I agree. Most of them are,
Hmm.
the just like halfway up the calf thing, which
Hmm.
there's something about the feel of them on my legs makes me really crazy. So I just don't wear them. I just don't wear socks. I'm barefoot all the time. So, but
Hmm.
but especially under boots, these are cute. And if the boots were a little shorter than the sock, you could even tuck them over the top and use them as a little cuff.
Totally.
Be cute. So yeah, and Savannah Gal says this would be great to have to wear with her boots, and Kate M loves high socks, and Savannah Gal likes the shaping because she says she has huge calves, which mine are not that big. So, but there you go. Yeah, they're just happy socks. They're just really
Very
happy
happy.
socks. They're happy
Yep.
socks. And there are some hat patterns in the book, and actually I think in tomorrow's vote for your favorite pattern, I have a picture of one that's the Fair Isle hat, which is toward the front of the
Mhm.
book. But this is to me, this is like the perfect Christmas gift for everybody. You can't have too many hats, mostly because people lose them. And
Mhm.
but that beanie shape is just classic. That's never
Mhm.
going to go out of style, unlike elf
Yeah, I
hats and
like
that
the
kind of
beanie
stuff.
shape partly because they fit really nicely under my bike helmet. So that's definitely an inspiration for going with the less slouchy shape. Although you could, make it bigger if that was your thing, but I really do like that beanie shape. And I worked these up in Brooklyn Tweed Loft, which is super just lightweight and it's really warm. It's a woolen spun yarn, so it has a lot of warmth without a lot of weight. And the stitch pattern in this is just a really simple sort of texture thing that is fun to work, but it just is more subtle. It doesn't have like it's not hugely decorative, which I think is nice for guys. A lot
Yeah,
of guys like
they
things
don't
to
like
be a
too
little
much fancy.
simpler. So
Yeah, they
yeah.
tend not to go for the fancy stuff. So yeah, and if you wear a coat that has a hood on it too, and especially you have a lot of hair, I have a lot of hair. It's actually if you have a hat and then you're to hold your hair down and to keep everything warm, and then put the hood over your head. It's a really nice way to stay warm and to keep your hair from going crazy. So
For
yeah, that's just it's the curse of having a lot of hair. But um,
sure.
this I love the color palette on this. I think the gold with the gray is so unexpected, and I'm a Fair Isle nut, which I blame on Tanis Gray, who taught me how to do it with like two-handed Fair Isle, and that's
Hmm.
pretty much been it for me. And
Yeah.
but I love Fair Isle, and what's really nice is it's if you get it in small doses, um, and it's separated by large sections of being able to work simply, it's
Hmm.
a lot less intimidating, I think, especially for people who are newer to Fair Isle. And Roxy says she just loves how these bands are placed, which I really, and how the sleeves are done. Are those zippers on those sleeves?
No, it's
Okay.
the stitch pattern has like a faux seam line going up there. So it's
Oh,
like you carry or you work the lighter color all the way throughout the chart in order to create a spot where shaping is easier. And it just like so that you have a beginning and an end. So it's symmetrical, it doesn't continue. And there's no like jog, it's just like that line.
yeah, and it's like the line that goes horizontally through the center of the pattern across the chest. And yeah,
Hmm.
so
Exactly.
this color palette is so Interesting. Was it inspired by something in particular?
I absolutely love gray and gold. And this is Brooklyn Tweed Loft again, which is just maybe my favorite yarn ever. I don't know. I absolutely adore this yarn. I love their color palette. They have just a beautiful selection. And these colors were ones that I knew that I wanted to use together. And I had planned to use them together for a long time before I actually found just the right design for them. So some people will call this combination grello because gray and yellow. There are some fans of that whole combination. We really love it. So this one, I wanted to have that kind of darkish gray that's more of uh, not a slate charcoal, a little lighter, but that could really stand out against that really light gray. And there's actually that line in the center is a lighter color. This isn't strictly Fair Isle because it doesn't really follow all of the Fair Isle rules. At the very just
Well,
under
rules are for
right,
suckers, right? Rules are for suckers
right.
when it comes to knitting.
But there are three colors held at one point, just for short periods, right before the line and right after the line, in order to get that look. So you do have just a little bit of excitement right in the center there, but it's not the whole way. So yeah, it was a really fun stitch pattern to work. This was another one that my husband helped me design. The color work, it's original, and I tried a bunch of different things before I settled on this one. So the color work was a really fun element, and then I love that shape as well, that silhouette that is sort of oversized but with the slender sleeves, so you get this really roomy fit, which is super comfortable and functional and lets you be really active without getting too sweaty. But it still looks really fitted because you have this great shaping in the shoulders, and then you have those slender sleeves. It's a silhouette that I really am very fond of.
Yeah, so it doesn't look like you're just wearing a sweater 4 sizes too big for you.
Right, and that's the trick is coming up with how do you have that trendy oversized thing, which I'm a big fan of, without it looking like it's, in the 80s they had those, it's just an enormous sweater with like enormous sleeves, and I think
I know, I
that's the
used to
part that
wear
puts
those.
me off, is those big upper arms.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you can come
Well,
up with
you
a
had to
way
have room for the shoulder pads, right? So that was like part of the deal. You had to have
that
room for
is
those
true.
huge shoulder pads. So, yeah, been there,
Yes.
owned those sweaters. So, and this cable sweater, I love cables. I am absolutely is like my absolute favorite thing, and I love cables that come out of the ribs. This is just like it's almost like this sweater was designed for me. But I think this may be my favorite cable sweater ever, and I'm
Thank
old,
you
so
so
it's like
much.
it's yeah, and it's
You've
so
seen a lot of them, yeah.
I've seen a lot of cable sweaters. So yeah, Kate says she loves the sweaters and she loves the blue, which I agree that blue is just gorgeous. That kind of robin's egg is so pretty, or
Hmm.
Tiffany blue. And Roxy says wonderful cables. Savannah Gal says this is her favorite so far, and it's
Oh, nice.
this is just the combination of the cables with the panel up the front, and then like the rope cables and the braided cables and I mean this is it's got it's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. So tell us about this
Well,
design
thank
other
you.
than the fact it's perfect.
Well, thank you. I really am inspired by a lot of traditional knitting. So, like you saw with the Lopi sweater and the sweater that had, the faux Fair Isle, the color work and all those things. This one, I really wanted to have a very glorious cabled sweater because I've always wanted to design one that was just like sort of jaw dropping, that you were just really impressed by all those cables, but that would be really fun to work and that would have sort of a unique, very feminine feel to it. So The shaping is there's some waist shaping. The sleeves are set in, so this one is all in pieces, so that because that fabric is pretty heavy, I worked it in Barocco Ultra Alpaca, which is
Oh,
a 50-50 alpaca
yes.
wool blend, which is has this really lovely little halo. You can almost see, if you look over one of the shoulders, you can kind of see the little halo in the light there, which is very beautiful, but the fabric ends up being pretty heavy. So the seams help to just add stability. And it's set in sleeves, so it's got that really feminine fit to it. That central cable there that's also on the sleeves is another one that my husband helped me to design. And that one was a little trickier than color work because it's sort of trickier to get it to work physically in the real world. You know, it has to actually be possible. So we played around with that quite a bit, but I'm very proud of that cable. I love the way that it turned out. It's just got that very intricate look that's pretty different and unique, but it's still, it works. And
Yeah,
the
it's
braids, I've always loved braided cables, so I
yeah,
really
me
wanted to
too.
include those somehow.
Yeah.
So, and then having that cowl neck, I thought just added sort of an elegance to it that this really, I can definitely picture this with like a tulle tutu being worn for like a dinner event. I mean, maybe that's just my style, but
Oh no. I'm a little past the tutu skirt, the tulle skirt stage, but no, I totally see that, and especially, oh yeah. I mean, it's really gorgeous. Yeah, Savannah Gal says jeans work for her. So, and the set-in sleeves really do. She made that point. The set-in sleeves really, you know, add to that fit because I think a lot of the heavily cabled sweaters are really designed more as the classic Air and Fisherman type sweaters,
Mhm.
and they're drop shoulders and they're very boxy. And
Mhm. Which
this,
is a look that I love, but I also, this one, I was going for something different. I wanted it to be a little versatile so that it could be more of a feminine, like winter work thing or, evening thing, as well as like jeans and, out with the farm chores, walking the dog, that sort of thing. So,
yeah, so gorgeous. All
thank
right. And
you.
then let's talk about the cover project because the texture and the color mix on this is really, really interesting. And I had never seen a fabric with this kind of a color mix to it before. And it's almost like bird's eye. It reminds me of like bird's eye
Mhm.
piqué fabric, where you get
Mhm.
that, it's almost like the shadow and the color all working together.
Mhm.
Tell us about this project.
I just love this stitch pattern. It's the simplest thing, it's just a checked one by one color, then the other color, and then on the next row you alternate. So it's just like checked the world's simplest possible color work. So it's just really basic stitch pattern, but it creates this sort of marled denim-y look, which is really just cool to look at. It's very subtle, but really interesting. And it creates this fabric that is really dense. And I worked this in Fiber Company Road to China Light, which is like this glorious alpaca, silk, camel, like all cashmere, all the amazing things that animals make is in this yarn. And so this is it's a sport weight. And when it's worked with this color pattern, it creates this sort of like buttery, beautiful, gorgeous. It has a drape to it, but it doesn't come out of shape because it has that sort of, it's interlocked with that color pattern thing going on. So it's a really an amazing fabric with all of that. And this one is another seamless one. And it has the lines just to kind of allow for the shaping. So there's waist shaping, and then the shoulder shaping or the yoke shaping is sort of a combo raglan saddle shoulder thing. And you have the center stitch is kept consistent throughout in order to create those lines. And the body and the sleeves are shaped independently of each other in that they're different at different rates so that the fit is really nice. So it's not a standard yoke in that, I worked at it to make the fit just really beautiful and to make those lines really gorgeous. So the other thing is that the neckline is actually steeked, and there are a couple of extra stitches in the steek panel so that, because this yarn's a bit slippery, and then the collar, the neckline is a double and is folded over so that the steek is entirely encased. So there are a lot of things about this that, even though this is a super luxury yarn, you have all these design elements that make this sweater something that's going to last a long time and actually be really practical while being also, this really luxurious sweater. So I think of it as like the ultimate sweatshirt.
Y- Yeah, it looks much nicer than the sweatshirts in my closet, I have to say. But yeah, I mean, this is just really, really spectacular. What a gorgeous book. You must be so proud.
It was very exciting to see it in print and that it actually all came together, and the styling team did such a beautiful job. And yeah, it was a ton of work, and it's really exciting to see it out in the world, and I'm really glad I get to talk about it.
Yeah. Well, my thing is, if you write a book, as long as it sits on one knitter's shelf somewhere, you'll never die, right? It's like
There we go.
it's immortality as long as one book is on a shelf somewhere. So it's like the cool thing about writing. All right, so I know
Yeah.
people are going to want to keep track of you and what's going on. And yeah, Kate M says, great book. And Mary S says, fabulous projects. And Savannah Gal said, there's so many lovely knits in this book, which I agree. It'd be like hard to pick what.
Thank you all so much.
So, so you can follow Andrea on Andrea Rangel Knits, which is or AndreaKnits.com. So you can see where she's going to be and also follow her blog and her newest patterns. And Roxy said there's a very nicely thought out real wear knits in this book, which I agree.
Thank you.
So you can also,
Yeah.
for people who are on Andrea, she has a designer page, which oddly enough is Andrea-Rangel. Go figure.
Yep.
Yeah, go figure. So, and
hmm
then Andrea also posts lovely photographs of what she's working on Instagram.
Yeah, Instagram is my big one. I really enjoy posting on Instagram. So if you want to see what I'm up to, that's the most immediate way.
There you go. And you get real life pictures of that. And you can also follow Andrea as Andrea R Knits on Twitter. Oh, and Andrea does have an email newsletter as well, which you can sign up for on AndreaKnits.com. But you may want to run over and do that as soon as you find out whether or not you run a book today. And Andrea is on Pinterest, and so you can follow her designs and things that inspire her, which I always love to see. Like you have a texture, color, pattern board, things that inspire other knitters. I always like to
Mhm.
see that other designers. And then you can also follow Andrea on Facebook. If you look up Andrea Rangel Knits, that's where you'll find her. And I can also see pictures from the book as well. And if you don't win a book today, of course, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to call your local yarn store and ask for the book. And if they don't have it, ask them why they don't have it, and tell them why they need to have it. But if they're not going to get it in for a month and you just absolutely have to have it today, you can go over to planetpearl.com, click on books, and then you'll see Rugged Knits is right here. And if you click on it, there's a link to buy it through Planet Pearl's Amazon bookstore. And you can also help support Planet Pearl, which is also a good thing. So if you don't win today, or if you're watching this later on YouTube, you can tomorrow morning on Facebook at 8 o'clock in the morning, we'll post our book giveaway, which you'll have until I think Sunday at 5 is what I put in the post, to have a second chance to win a copy of this book. courtesy of Interweave, F&W. Oh, F&W used to be F&W Media, courtesy of Interweave F&W because they're very generous people and they keep us supplied with all kinds of good stuff. So you'll get a chance. You can all get a chance to win a book there. So, Andrea, are you working on another one or are you taking a break?
I'm totally working on another one. I'm
Yeah.
almost finished, actually, with my part of it. I've got another few weeks of knitting and manuscript writing, and then it's back off to interweave. But this one is very different. It has just 5 knitting patterns in it, but the rest of it is a stitch dictionary. So it's color work entirely. So if you're a Fair Isle nut, I think you are going to really love it. It's going to be a lot of color work. So
Which means you're going to come back and talk about it once the book is released.
I would love to. It's supposed to be out next year, spring, summerish. So I haven't gotten a date yet, but it is definitely coming out next year. So I'll have another one to talk about next year.
Oh, good. And Kate says she can't wait to see it, and Mary says yay, which I agree. I can't wait to see because
Thanks, folks.
your color sense is so beautiful and interesting and modern and just gorgeous. I can't wait to see the next book as well. So I wish you the absolute best of success with this. It's just it's such a gorgeous book. And yes, and so you're getting much love in the room. People stick around because you know I'm about to give away a book. And thank you so much, Andrea, for joining me on the party line. Savannah's dreaming about that cable sweater, and
Oh,
which
thank
I will
you.
probably be for a long time to come till I like figure out when I have time to make one. But it's gorgeous. But thank you so much for being here, and thanks to everyone for joining us. And I think our next guest up is Kyle Konecki with Urban Knit Collection. I think that's in a couple of weeks, beginning of October. And then we have the great Nora Gowan is
Oh,
joining us, I think the second week of October, to talk about her new knitted cable source book. So you don't want to miss that either. We got a lot coming up on the party line. It's knitting season and we're back. So, anyway, so thanks again, everyone. Hang in there. I'm about to give away a book.
thanks so much for having me.